Faith is a word that we often talk about in Christian circles, but sometimes I feel like I don't actually know what it is. Someone explained faith to me in a way that made sense to me, and I want to share that with you. What they said was, faith and belief are different. Belief is when you walk up to a chair, you look at the specs or you look at how it's built, and you say, yes, I think that can hold my weight. See, belief is when you cognitively, in your head, hold on to the facts that something is true, that something is probably true. Faith, though, is when you actually sit in that chair and put the weight of who you are into that chair. I had a faith, a belief in something when I was a kid. Now, this had nothing to do with spirituality or God or anything like that. Instead, I had a faith that cigarettes were the most disgusting thing in the world. It's an easy thing for a kid to believe. And so I would tell family members who smoked that they shouldn't smoke. I would give them a litany of reasons. I would tell them about the health effects and the bad smell and the way it can mess up your car, your teeth. But they didn't usually listen to that, and they didn't really like hearing from my self-righteous self. So what I would do is I would take matters into my own hands. I would steal their cigarettes and throw them away. I would crumble up the packs. I even would open the packs and break individual cigarettes and put them back in the pack. So that way they wouldn't know they were messed up, and when they would go to smoke one later, maybe it would delay them from having that cigarette because they didn't have it right then and they'd have to get a new pack. Then my freshman year happened. And what happened in my freshman year was this: I was at a party, I was at a gathering of a group of friends, and the gathering was going to change locations. I got into a car, just like all my other friends did, and as it was driving, I looked around and I noticed something different about this car. I was the only freshman in the car. The other 4 people were seniors. And as I sat in the back middle seat, I also realized that these seniors were of the female variety, the beautiful, popular female variety. And I thought I had made it, that I was there, that I had achieved something special. As I was sitting and feeling so good about myself, suddenly something happened. One of the girls pulled out a cigarette and lit it and started smoking, and then she passed it to her friend. That friend took the cigarettes, took a puff, and passed it to her friend, who also took a puff of that cigarette and then passed it to me. When I was handed that cigarette, the kid self in me would have said, "No, this is gross. What are you guys doing? No," and thrown it out the window or something. I don't know, something crazy like that. But that's not what I did. I instead took a puff of that cigarette myself and passed it on as if I was Joe Cool who had been doing this my whole life. In that moment, what I thought was faith turned into a belief, and I found out that actually I trusted in something more. Maybe it was popularity or saving face or something along the lines of that. But it was easy for me to set aside what I had believed before about cigarettes in that moment because I wanted something more in that moment than what I wanted most. The reason I'm telling you this is that today we are talking about yearning. We're continuing our series and ending it up today. And we've talked about how God wants us and what it looks like to desire God as much as you desire drinking water when you are parched and thirsty in a desert. Today, though, we're talking about when our yearning for God is interrupted by our choices in a moment, or our choices that are planned out that go against God. And what do we do when we don't do the things that we believe are best? And that's how a lot of people see Christians. They see Christians as people who say one thing and do another. At best, they see us as people who try really hard and fail, and at worst, they see us as judgmental hypocrites who openly say one thing knowing that they're going to go and do the other 6 days of the week. Author and theologian Brennan Manning said it like this. He said he believed that the number one cause of atheism in the world today was Christians who proclaimed God with their mouth and denied God with their lifestyles. He said it was what an unbelieving world found simply unbelievable. So what do we do with that? What do we do when we desire one thing and actually do something very different? Most Christians I know, and I'm a professional Christian, right? I do this for a living. And most people I know who are Christians attempt to follow God because they actually do believe, they have that head knowledge belief that God's way is the best way. And they try to achieve that. They try to love and they try to forgive because they believe love and forgiveness are great things. They try to follow God because they believe following God is a good thing. They try to acquire and demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit. They try to demonstrate love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. But what they end up looking like is someone who is acting like they're sitting in a chair, but there's no chair there. They try to look the part and act the part, but really there's nothing of God supporting them underneath them. And so over time, they get tired and worn out and fall. And when they fall as a Christian, or someone who believes that they're a Christian, there is huge impact of what that means in their life. See, for a Christian, we believe perfection is the way. We believe that God was the only one who came in the form of Jesus as a perfect person because we couldn't do it ourselves, and that He made us a new creation. And we know that we can't ever do enough to make up for it. So somehow we get into our head that when we become a Christian, suddenly we should be perfect, that everything just works out. That everything in our lives, when we decide that, yes, I believe God is true, I believe His way is true, that suddenly everything will be easy and we will be perfect. We try to jump to Z from A and get to where we're going right away instead of going on the journey. In Romans chapter 7, Paul describes this type of thinking, this kind of belief. And this is what it says in the New Living Translation of Romans 7, starting at verse 15. I don't understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know what I am doing is wrong, this shows that I agree that the law is good. See, Paul's saying, hey, if I know that I'm doing wrong, then I know that there is a right. And I know that there's right out there, and I know that when I do this wrong thing, I'm doing wrong, so I know that's good. So there's good out there. God's law is good. I know it's good, and I just can't stinking do it. So I'm not the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. Again, this is not him making an excuse. He's saying when I go against God, that's sin, right? And I don't really want to do these things, but then I kind of do want to do these things. And so when I do that, when I trust me over God, when I'm leaning on something else, when I'm sitting in that chair and trying to support myself in a different way, that is sin. Anything I do against God is sin. So here we go, continuing on. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I'm not really the one doing wrong. It is sin living in me that does it. He's again saying this is just desires I have in me, and it's not my true self. It's not the self that God made. It's something else that's eating me up, that's doing this. It's not an excuse. He's not shifting blame here. He's saying I'm allowing sin to live in me like this. I have discovered this principle of life, that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to sin that is still within me, literally sold under sin. Oh, what a miserable person I am. Other translations say, oh, what a wretched person I am. And the original Greek that those are translated from, the word there is this word that is someone who is beat down by life, that has tried and tried and tried to do something and continually failed and is broken. And I don't know if you've known anybody whose life has just been through the ringer, but it is tough to see, and it is hard to see. And that's what he's saying he feels like, someone who has just gone through it. What a horrible, beaten, broken down person I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? Thank God. The answer is in Jesus Christ our Lord. So you see how it is. In my mind, I really want to obey God's law, but because of my sinful nature, I am a slave to sin. I know that I have felt that way more than once. That I try to do what God is saying, and I just simply can't. That I try in my own strength to follow God, and I don't know how, and I get lost along the way. And again, this comes back to us trying to get what we're going after from the beginning. We're trying to get the result of a life with God instead of having a life with God and then getting the results. It's kind of like back in the 80s, they discovered that successful people had self-esteem. So what they did was they told parents and teachers to give kids self-esteem, and suddenly participation trophies were invented. You love participation trophies? Who has that still on their mantle right now? They started erasing grades. They started giving gold stars to everyone and telling everyone they could do anything they wanted to if they just put their mind to it. And they told us these great things and made us feel great about ourselves. And then they came back with a study in 2018, you can Google it, that said self-esteem is great and successful people do have self-esteem, but if you have self-esteem before you have success, it doesn't necessarily lead to success. Actually, there's no real correlation about having self-esteem first and then becoming successful. So what we had is a lot of people who thought really highly of themselves, but never really achieved anything, never actually made it anywhere. We looked at what a successful person had and didn't think, how did they become successful? Instead, we looked at characteristics after they were successful and try to jumpstart kids with that. What we've discovered now, though, is that what propels someone from point A of no success to point Z of being successful is this thing called grit. Grit is when you have perseverance in the face of things and obstacles in your way. It's when things get tough and you don't give up. And we want a gritty faith, not just a faith that has high self-esteem, that thinks highly of itself. We want a gritty faith, a faith that actually lasts through to the end. A faith that does perfect us and does produce the fruit of the Spirit, that does produce a forgiving heart, a forgiving soul. We are new creations, but we are not finished creations. We are at the start of this journey. We're not at the end of the journey. And it's a journey along the way that actually leads us to perfection. It's kind of like the statues of Michelangelo. You see, he made the David, and it's a beautiful statue, and if you go to see it, it looks spectacular. But they have this room right off where you can still see David, but in this room, there are these big marble slabs of squares. And these squares are in all sorts of different conditions. And what you're seeing is it's slowly being chiseled away to reveal a human form in different states. And here's a picture right here of what it kind of looks like. The forms emerging from stone. You see, these are a new creation that Michelangelo is creating, but they weren't finished creations. And on a more personal note, here is the newest addition to our family. His name is Stormy, this little Australian shepherd. And can I tell you, he is a beautiful new creation. He is energetic and fun, but can I also tell you, I am really glad that he is a new creation, but he's not a finished one, because he bites and he yelps and he runs around and chews on everything. And I know that Stormy is not a finished creation, and I'm so glad one day I can let him out front and not worry about eagles coming down and grabbing him, that he will be a more finished creation as he goes, that he will be perfected as he goes and learning the ways of our family. So how do we get to point Z? What does this process for a Christian look like? Well, what the New Testament tells us over and over is that every single day, our bodies are hurting and sin is amongst us and around us and in us at times. And every single day, we get a renewal of our hearts and minds through the Holy Spirit. It doesn't say we get a one-time renewal where we get to do these good works and everything is perfect from the get-go. It says, no, daily you need renewal. Jesus alludes to this when he says that every day has a trouble enough of its own. So don't worry about tomorrow's troubles. Today has enough trouble, and then tomorrow has even more trouble. And in Leviticus it tells us that God's mercies are new every single day. So every day we get up and we get new mercy from God. We get new grace from God because that day has its troubles for us, and we're going to experience troubles in that day. We're going to face trials in that day. We're going to face tribulations in that day. Over and over and over again, we will need renewal. And as we stumble, we get to look to God and say, God, help me here. Because Romans 8 tells us the big key to all of this. You see, it was never the rules that made us right. It was the relationship that made us right. It was our relationship to God who stepped in and said, no, you're not perfect, but I will make you perfect. I will make you a new creation and perfect you along the way. And how I will do this, as Romans 8 says, is that I am adopting you as kids. You are not guilty anymore, but you are innocent by association with me. And what you get to do, because you're in a relationship with me, is when you stumble and fall, you get to look to me and reach out your hand and I will lift you up. That as you go, you get to spend time with me and learn my ways and grow with me. How beautiful is that? That God sees us as his children, his adopted children who he purposely chooses to be with. And as we go, we get to learn this. And since it's the relationship and not the rules that make us right, the rules kind of pour out of that relationship and become our natural way. And since it's that relationship, we have to nurture that relationship. And we have to nurture that relationship with time. We need to go to God often. We need to be there with we would with our spouse or a friend or a family member in our physical world that we want to grow a relationship with. We have to grow a relationship with our spiritual father by being with him. And so throughout your day, as you face different things, saying, God, help me in this moment because my boss is about to say something and I know that it's not good for me to act a certain way back. Or you come home from a long day of work and you're with your spouse and they're saying things and you're like, God, please give me patience right now because I don't have my A game. And I wish I had my A game for my family, but I don't. So please give me that patience. Or you're single and you're wanting to go after different things and you're saying, God, I know what I'm about to look at on the internet here is not good for my soul. Help me see them as you see them, as actual children of God who was created in your image and you love. And I know what I'm about to do is not loving for them. Help me with that. Help me. And so it takes time with God to build that relationship. It also takes presence. It takes presence to do that. You have to actually be in that moment with God. It's not something that you just kind of talk to God and you're around God and you show up. You have to actually be present in that moment. You have to be attentive to actually say things that really matter in your heart. Maybe it's while you're reading scripture or you're praying or walking through your day. You actually need to make sure that you focus time on God, not just talking or reading, but really listening. And really saying, God, I'm here with you right now in this moment. Talk to me. Mold me. Grow me. So you need time and you need presence in that time. And you also need to be with God in God's work. Where is God working? God doesn't hide where he's working. The Bible tells us he is with the widows and orphans in their time of need. So foster a kid and go after that kid. Adopt a child. Support your local food bank and help them. Help mothers and fathers who are on their own and singles who are on their own. Go after the hurting. And can I tell you, God is always working with the hurting. You see Jesus' life, he goes to the hurting. And where can you find the hurting? Everywhere. Look around you right now. Look around your work or your school. Hurting people are everywhere, and where hurting people are, God is there. And you need to sit with them and say, God, what are you doing in this life? Help me walk alongside of where you are. Help me be present in the work you're doing and learn from the work you're doing in this life. So we have to spend time. We have to be present, and we need to be where God is working and pay attention to the way God's working. That's how we nurture this relationship that will eventually lead us to experience the fruit of the Spirit. Perfection is a process. It's not just a destination. It's what happens to us as we walk with God. We are being perfected. We are being made right. We are getting a heart that is being shaped out of stone into something that is more loving and more forgiving over time. Now back to my puppy Stormy. See, one reason we got a puppy right now is because we have another dog. His name is Crush. And Crush is about the best dog in the world. He was amazing. He has been fast trained and does not need potty training. He treats us all with gentleness, and he used to be a very high energy dog, but now he has slowed down a bit. And he listens. And he's kind to people, and he's gentle, and people who hate dogs love our amazing Crush. And so one of the reasons that we got a puppy is because we know that one day Crush won't be with us. But we wanted this puppy to spend time with Crush, to be present with Crush, to watch Crush live out the rules of being a dog in our home. Because Crush does it so well, and we wanted this relationship between our puppy and our perfect dog so that our puppy could learn from that. So like Stormy, cuddle up to God. Be right next to God. See how God is working. Let God work that magic in you, that mystery in you. And I would also encourage you, in the description below, right down here, you will see there's a couple links to a few songs that might speak to your soul. One of them is a song called Dear God by Corey Asbury, and get out the tissues, it hits my soul every time. Another one's called Becoming by Jason Gray. But look at those, listen to those, and really pray for God to be present in your life like that. Remember, it's not the rules that make you right, it's the relationship. So lean into that relationship. If anything today said something to your soul, please make sure to share it. Please make sure to like it and follow our page so that we can continue to talk to others about this remarkable God that we have. Thank you for joining us today.